Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So it's August 11th, which if you woke up today, you probably didn't really think much of the date unless it's your birthday. Happy birthday. Statistically, there should be a couple of you. But in 6 months from now, the date is relevant because in 6 months from now, the men's hockey portion of the 2026 Winter Olympics will be getting underway over in Italy. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to kind of give my pre-NHL season rosters for the 2026 Olympics. We're going to be doing Team USA and Team Canada because like Sweden and Finland would probably just be the exact same as their four nations, and the other nations are like whatever NHL players they have at that point. So we're going to be going through Team Canada and Team USA. If I was a general manager, how I would build those teams. It's going to be a little bit different than the four nations. You get more players that you're able to bring over because you can't do like middle of the tournament call-ups like what happened at four nations. So you're allowed 25 total players. So basically I'm going to do 14 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 3 goalies. And when looking at this is not just going to be me taking my top 50 players in the NHL, top 50 defensemen, top 20 goalies, and just throwing them on a roster. There is clearly different factors when it comes to the team building. For example, especially, I'm going to be saying this a lot during the video, in a bottom 6 of a forward core, I'm going to prioritize bigger, more two-way physical guys compared to all offense guys that are not going to be on a top power play. They're only going to be playing 11 to 12 minutes a night in a more defensive situations. So that's definitely going to play into it. When looking at pairs, maybe an offensive guy, a defensive guy together. Not saying I'm solely doing that, but that's kind of the thought process that goes into it. It is basically common sense with the goalies, maybe factor in playoff experience, big game experience, a decent amount. So yeah, we are going to dive into it. We're going to be starting off with my Team USA team. We're going to go forward core, then defense core. If you've seen my other videos, you kind of know what I'm doing, and it's going to be pretty obvious once I show the first graphic of how we're doing it. So here is my Team USA forward core. Matthews and Hughes need to play better. They kind of held back this Team USA in the four nations. They easily could have won that game if those guys stepped up in a big way, but I have them on the top line because I do think they are probably. Jack Eichel's also amazing, but like they are 2 of the 3 most talented players, as well as Jake Gensel. He was damn good in four nations, and obviously he's great on the Tampa Bay Lightning. That second line arguably should be the first line, just considering they were so good at the four nations tournament. Eichel with the Tkachuk brothers, with the Bash Bros. Onto the third line. We got 2 new guys, Tage Thompson, Jason Robertson. We're not on the four nations team for some goddamn reason. Spoiler alert, I don't have Vincent Trocheck. I don't have Chris Kreider. I don't have Brock Nelson on my fourth line or as my extras. When looking at Tage Thompson, especially the way that he's refined his defensive game the last couple of years, as well as scoring 40 goals 2 out of the last 3 years, I think he would make an awesome third line center. And I think he's probably going to make the team considering he went to Worlds this year and had the game-winning goal, I believe. He played great over there. So I love him as my third line center. Jason Robertson in a tournament like this would have to play a lot more physical on that third line, but he's also really good defensively. And then you got kind of the offensive firecracker that is Kyle Connor. Similarly to Hughes and Matthews, he needs to be much better than he was at Four Nations, but he was awesome for the Winnipeg Jets in the first round of the playoffs. He had 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points to basically like will them past the St. Louis Blues. So that was really encouraging. And as a result, he's on my third line. The fourth line, just kind of two-way, more so physical guys. Matthew Boldy maybe doesn't have the offensive ceiling of some of the guys that I've left out of this lineup or the team overall that are not even extras. But when looking at him, just a consistent 70-point, two-way, great defensive player. He's probably going to be on the team because Bill Guerin's the general manager, who's the Minnesota Wild general manager. But yeah, I thought he was very good at four nations as well. Dylan Larkin, reliable two-way center. Also can give you 75 to 80 points in an NHL season. Solid goal scorer, around 30 goal pace. And then JT Miller, physical guy, and played really good once he got traded to New York Rangers and obviously had like 100 points a couple of years ago. That is my forward core, and I'm pretty confident in it. Next up, the defense core. This is pretty straightforward. I think it's the exact same defense core that they had at Four Nations. I don't really think you touch it too much. Hughes, McAvoy already named to the team. They're going to be the pair. Hughes, puck-moving defenseman. McAvoy, more so of the defensive guy. Werenski and Fox, it's tough. I don't think stylistically, player fit-wise, they're a great match because they're both solid both ways, but more so offensive defensemen. Werenski's like 6'2", Fox is 6 foot, but they are just so much more talented than the next up guys. And also, I just don't want to split up Slavin and Faber that were so good at Four Nations, arguably their best pair. I wouldn't blame you if you put the Slavin Faber pair at second because they were so good at, especially in that Team Canada game when they were able to kind of shut them down, especially in that third period. So yeah, the defense core, the 6 guys there, I think, are going to be the 6 guys there. Adam Fox kind of was pretty shit at Four Nations, so maybe you take him out. But I think that he's going to bounce back in a big way and have a monster season For the New York Rangers, and then to finish it off, the goalies in the extras. I still have Connor Hellebuck there. I understand if you go with the Jake Ottinger just because the playoff numbers clearly favor Jake Ottinger, especially the last 3 to 4 years. Hellebuck is still the most talented goaltender on the USA roster, and there's no road games at the 2026 Olympics. I don't think they're going to lose to Italy. Imagine he allows like 10 goals against Italy. But yeah, hopefully he can play solid. I think it is his net. Short leash, don't get me wrong. If he shits his pants the first game, thankfully the US has a pretty easy group that they're in. But yeah, then you go to an Ottinger who has been so good the last couple years for the Dallas Stars in the playoffs and beat Hellebuck head-to-head this year in the playoffs. But I think Ottinger and Hellebuck is your clear 1-2. In terms of the extras, again, Clayton Keller, just a smaller skill guy. I think he's a better player than Boldy. I think he's a better player than JT Miller. But is he suited for a fourth line? I'm not so sure. I think if you have an injury, God forbid, you throw Keller within the top 6, and that makes a lot of sense. Alex Tuch more so as a winger within that bottom 6. I didn't go with an extra center in terms of my extras because like JT Miller's a center, Jack Hughes is a center. You have 6 centers right there. So I think Alex Tuch makes sense in terms of someone within the bottom 6 gets hurt, especially considering he has chemistry with Tage Thompson, obviously. Jake Sanderson as my left-handed defenseman backup. Great two-way guy that's only going to be better, already a top 15 defenseman in my opinion. And John Carlson as a right-handed defenseman. This team doesn't really have that much of a veteran presence, especially like winning veterans. When looking at John Carlson, Stanley Cup champion, like you look at this team, who are the Stanley Cup champions? Gensel, Tkachuk, Eichel, and then is that it? Like, yeah, you maybe need some more of a winning culture in there. You bring in John Carlson, who still is very good. Like, I think he's underrated and is not some kind of defensive black hole or anything. And then you bring in Dustin Wolf, who is probably going to be your guy, him and Ottinger in 2030 and 2034. Dustin Wolf will for sure probably be the starter, and you get him some experience. You get him familiar with the Olympic team. This is my Team USA. I don't think it's very controversial. In terms of potential snubs, when looking at somebody like a Cole Caulfield, like an Alex DeBrincat, just smaller guys, Caulfield more so than DeBrincat, not very good defensively. And as a result, I don't think that you throw them in some kind of bottom 6 role where they're not going to be on a top power play or any power play, point blank period. That's just not how you get the most out of those guys. So although very good players, not cracking my team. Also, in terms of some of the snubs, Logan Cooley, if he takes a huge step, maybe could make this team, but again, a little bit undersized. And when you look at the centers that this team has, I'm not sure he's going to be there. Matthew Nyes is a guy that I considered in that Alex Tuch position as just like that fill in a bottom 6 winger spot. I think it could make sense, but Alex Tuch is just the clear better player right now. In terms of defenseman stubs, Lane Hudson, I think he'll make it in 2030 and be a prominent player on that team. But if you're not throwing him on that top power play, this team doesn't really lack puck-moving defensemen. So I think considering he's a little bit undersized and only going to play 15 to 17 minutes a night, if he was on this team, I'd rather have someone like Jake Sanderson that is more of a two-way guy. As my fourth left-handed defenseman, Seth Jones almost made it over John Carlson. If there's signs of regression from John Carlson, I think you go with Seth Jones as that fourth right-handed defenseman, but I'm pretty high on John Carlson. And then 2 other lefties, Jackson Lacombe, if he keeps on killing it, the final 2/3 of last season, he was awesome. Maybe he could somehow slip ahead of a Jake Sanderson and make this team. And also Cam Fowler. Jackson Lacombe broke out because Cam Fowler got traded. But Cam Fowler was also fantastic on the St. Louis Blues, having 36 points in 51 games, 10 points in 7 playoff games. If he hits the ground running, I could see you potentially bringing him on this team. And that's it for my Team USA. Oh, wait, my bad. One more thing. The honorable mention goalies, Jeremy Swayman, if he bounces back and has a 9-18 by the time that they're selecting these teams, I think you potentially take him. And Anthony Stolarz, just too small of a sample size right now, but if he has a 9-20 like he's had the last 2 years in the regular season, you definitely potentially could take him. Moving on to my Team Canada in the forward core. I think the top 6, I don't really have to justify that much. That's basically set in stone. That third line, get Nick Suzuki on this goddamn team. It's ridiculous that he missed it last year. He took that personally and was like a top 3 player in the NHL post 4 Nations. He should be their third line center, just considering he is so good defensively, while also almost having 90 points this season in 2 30-goal seasons. Mark Stone, I'm always very high on Mark Stone. I think he's perfect for a bottom 6 role on a Team Canada because he is so good defensively. Hagel, same thing there. Speedy guy, speedy two-way guy that also had 35 goals, 55 assists, 90 points this year. So that's a ridiculously good third line. And then the fourth line, I kind of just went with pests. I know that there's probably guys you would rather have come in NHL regular season, but in a playoff environment, Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, Seth Jarvis, physical two-way demons. I think that makes a lot of sense. Again, Sam Bennett as your second line center or first line center in an NHL season. There's guys that I'd rather have, but at a tournament like this, I think Sam Bennett would be an awesome pick. In terms of a fourth line center, in terms of the defense, the top pair, I think you just got to pencil that in for the most part, considering the pre-existing chemistry, and they've been arguably the best pair in the NHL basically since Devontae's got traded to the Colorado Avalanche. So don't mess that up. I have the Albertan pair, Mackenzie Weegar and Evan Bouchard. Bouchard obviously did not make the team last year. I still think although there's very low moments with Evan Bouchard, I think the offensive brilliance is there. I can see an argument just because you already have Josh Morrissey and Cale Makar. Maybe you don't go with Bouchard, but I think he's a little bit overhated. And playing alongside a guy like Mackenzie Weegar would be awesome for him. That third pair, Josh Morrissey, Colton Parayko, great blend of offensive defense and smaller guy, giant-ass right-handed defenseman. Parayko was also pretty damn good offensively last year and very good in the Four Nations. So that's a good blend. These pairs are a lot more balanced than the Team USA ones. I would say in terms of that, one offensive defenseman, one defensive defenseman, this defense core is pretty goddamn gross. My goalies, Logan Thompson, he's not going to get selected for some reason because they absolutely hate him. Peter DeBoer and Cassidy just despise the dude. He didn't even get invited to the camp that they had this past, or they're going to have in the next couple of weeks. Shocking. I would love to know the story of why that is. But then I got Jordan Binnington as the backup. Big game player yet again this year in the playoffs. Had some great performances. Obviously won the Stanley Cup back in 2019. Was really good in 2022 until he eventually got hurt. Then they lost to the Colorado Avalanche. So I think that personally would be my 1-2 punch. And then for extras, Robert Thomas, very skilled playmaker. I think if someone within their top 6 or top 9 gets hurt, you plug him there, whether it's a center, whether he's on the wing. And I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with some of the goal scorers that you have within that top 9. Celebrini in a bottom 6 role. I think he's already very good defensively. His board battle numbers are off the charts, micro stats and all that. And I would just like to bring him in terms of that next generation of Team Canada. Connor Bedard not making it just because he is more so of an offensive goal scoring guy, and he's not going to crack the top 6 at this point. Tanev as my backup right-handed defenseman, just one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL. Thomas Harley as my left-handed guy. It's so tough. You can maybe convince me to put Hartley just with Makar because I think Hartley's better than Devontae's, but you're not messing up that chemistry. And I do like Weegar and Morrissey more than Thomas Harley, but that just goes to show how disgusting the left side of their defense is. Harley was like my 15th best defenseman in the NHL. And then I put Adin Hill in net. Obviously, big game experience, winning the Stanley Cup back in 2023. Did not have the best season this year, but still a pretty trustworthy guy. In terms of my honorable mentions for Team Canada, Mark Scheifele, they're pretty loaded at center, as you can see, especially those top 3 centers. And even I had to kick out Braden Point and Sidney Crosby to the goddamn wing. And Mark Scheifele does not play a lot of defense. Is not very good defensively. So I don't think it makes sense to have him as your 4th line center. Dylan Strome, very good playmaker, but similarly to Scheifele, I don't love him in like a bottom 6 role, if that makes sense. Sorelli, I do really like in a bottom 6 role, but I think that outside of Bennett, like those guys are also very good defensively while being much better offensively than Sorelli. So I thought about putting him there. I thought about replacing him or putting him there over like a Celebrini, but just the offense isn't quite there. Looking at a guy like Matt Barzal, not ideal for a bottom 6 role. In terms of the defensemen, Shea Theodore, the left side is just so goddamn stacked. If Pietrangelo was still playing at a high level, prayers to him. Hopefully he recovers and somehow makes an NHL comeback or just is good in his regular life. Then they would probably be my second pair because of that pre-existing chemistry. But without Pietrangelo, I just can't justify him over the guys that I have on this team right now. Vince Dunn, I think, is very underrated. But again, the left side is loaded. Noah Dobson, Dougie Hamilton. Again, I just like more so of the defensive guys that I went with in Colton Parayko and Chris Tanev. They definitely have higher ceilings, but at a tournament like this, when you have Makar, when you have Bouchard, when you have Morrissey, you don't really need a ton of offense on top of that. And Jacob Chychrun, if there was only one extra defenseman, I think I might have went with Jacob Chychrun just because he has experience playing on the left and the right side. But considering the fact you can bring 2 defensemen to this tournament, you don't have to really worry about that. And then lastly, in net, Montembeault this season was amazing for Montreal. Doesn't have the longest track record, especially come playoff time. So I decided to keep him off. Kemper, he's getting up there in age. We got to see if last season was legit, and then maybe you put him on this team. But I just went with these guys that recently had a lot of playoff success. And Mackenzie Blackwood is just a little bit too unproven, especially come playoff time at this point, to justify him over the 3 guys that I put. So here is my full Team Canada for 2026. Here is the Team USA. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about these picks? Who would you move up? Who'd you move in? Who would you move out? Which team do you think is going to win the 2026 Olympics? Is it going to be one of these two teams? Is it going to be Sweden? Is it going to be Finland? Again, I just didn't do those teams because I don't think there's a lot of intrigue with those at this point. But yeah, let me know in the comments. 6 months to go, man. 6 months to go until we got Olympic hockey for the first time in 12 years. Thank you guys so much for watching. Tonight, I'm going to be doing my Manager Monday punishment challenge because I didn't win a Stanley Cup with the Montreal Canadiens. I got to eat a shit ton of poutine in 2 hours. It's going to be fun. We're going to hang out. We're going to do some trivia. We're going to do some tier lists. We're going to talk hockey, all that good stuff. I'll be seeing the next one. Sorry about the 4-day break. I was over at John Boy, the warehouse, doing some content, some floorball content there. That'll be out in like 2 months from now. But I'll be seeing the next one. Peace.